blameless is self-controlled. Literally, the word here could be translated sane, of sound mind. So I think we should start with someone who wasn't. Let's read Mark 5, 1 to 20, and Luke 8, 26 to 39. What has taken away this man's self-control? What different ways does that show itself? After Jesus has cast out his demons, what are the signs that he's once more in his right mind? What different details emerge in Luke that are not in Mark, and vice versa? Without self-control because of the demons, he cannot engage with society. He's in the tombs, he's unclean. Luke tells us he is naked. He allows no restraint. Mark tells us he is self-harming. He's lost much of his own mind to the point that although he can run to Jesus and fall at his feet, it's no longer clear whether it's the man or the demon that speaks. And when the demons have left him, we see that he can take part in society again. He's dressed and in his right mind and sitting at Jesus' feet, able to restrain himself, control himself, speak and think for himself. Time for another pause the video moment as we ponder this. How do you account for the witnesses' reaction? Why are they afraid? Why are they asking Jesus to leave their region? I think they're afraid because they struck a deal and the pigs were part of that. So Jesus' actions have broken that deal, and if he stays, he'll put other similar deals at risk. What was that huge herd of pigs doing there in the Promised Land? What made them agree to keep unclean animals there? Well, money, obviously. Much needed income for the town and the surrounding countryside. They're striking a deal here, of course. To get the money, they have to compromise on their faith. And when your faith is compromised, some people are going to handle it better than others. Not everyone will end up self-harming naked among the tombs, but if you deliberately agree to undermine the foundations of your existence, to sit loose to God's commands, somebody is going to end up in that state. Whenever we are tempted to accommodate the church to the world in any way, as with current debates over marriage and sexual identity, we should remember that whatever we think we will gain, we will lose far more. Because when community makes way for the pigs, legion comes too. This is not the only time that being of sound mind is linked to the way in which someone dresses. Paul uses the same word in 1 Timothy 2, 9 and 10, where he says he wants the women to dress modestly with decency and propriety. When we talk about dressing this way, with sobriety, we tend to mean dressing to look miserable. It's not what Paul means at all. For him, there is such a thing as dressing right-mindedly. So what we wear is appropriate to the conditions outside, to the occasion, and it sends out an appropriate message given who we are. In this case, professed worshippers of God. In our case, too, one hopes. In verse 9, he talks about what that doesn't mean. In verse 10, he talks about what it does. You might want to pause the video now and reflect for a bit on how our choice of clothes expresses the state of our mind. Do we dress for ourselves or to take part in a community? Self-control is by no means just for the women. Take a look at Paul's letter to Titus in verses 1 to 14 of chapter 2. Self-control is being urged on Titus as something every group really must be taught to exercise. Note in different cases what it is being contrasted with, but take particular note of the reason given in verses 11 to 14 for our self-control, because exactly the same reason is given by Peter in 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 7. The foundation for our right-mindedness is the fact that Jesus is Lord and that he is coming soon to judge the earth. His self-giving, his grace, is the reason we have been brought into our right minds, and is the reason that the stuff that currently makes the rest of the world go round and makes the lives around us spin out of control won't be messing us up. We will say no to ungodliness and worldly passions and live self-controlled, upright and godly lives in this present age while we wait for the age to come. What does ungodliness and worldly passions suggest to us today? When those rule, how does that manifest? How do God's people get free of those things? One more question to think about. From what we have just seen, is diagnosed and treated mental illness a bar to godly leadership? Discuss. I know what I think. I owe so much thanks to God for one particular godly leader at Spurgeon's College who wouldn't have been able to teach me at all if he hadn't have been taking his medication. But he did. If you have been, thank you for joining in.